I'm just going to start from the beginning. In order to tell you how I got sober, I have to tell you how I got here. I'm an alcoholic, and my name is Brittany. I am not anonymous. I am sharing my story publicly because I feel drawn to do so. It heals me, and I'm hoping that it can help others. So here I go. When I think back to where my alcoholism started, I actually think about my childhood because there was a lot of drinking around me that I was so aggressively obsessed with because I hated it. So even though I didn't want to do it, I swore when I grew up I would never drink because of what I watched drinking be around me. I was already obsessed with alcohol as a child, and I see that today. It took years of lots of work and self reflection to come to that conclusion in sobriety. That is not something I just knew all along. I learned that about myself over time. I drank for the first time when I was 14, and I didn't like it. I thought it was gross. So my automatic response to thinking that it was gross and not liking it was to get drunk by myself the very next night. So, when I look back now, I can laugh and I can see things much different in a much more, graceful light, I guess. But it's funny to me. I have been through enough and healed enough to where it can be funny to me. So, um, but my drinking was slow at first. I was a typical teenager going out and partying. There were certain environments closer to home where I was permitted to drink alcohol underage because they wanted it to be a safe environment for me to drink in, because they thought I was going to do it anyway, but I went out and partied anyway. So that concept didn't work out the way that that person had planned for it to. When I was finally hitting the age of 18 to move out and be on my own, I ended up meeting someone and getting into a relationship. So I moved out right at 18 and moved in with my girlfriend, and it was a party house. It was the place that everybody came to, and there was a lot going on there all the time. I was not very popular in high school. I was not really a party girl. I was more of the hippie stoner chick. So I didn't really party a lot in high school. I did party some, but not a lot. Uh, so my partying really started when I hit about 18 and started dating the girlfriend. And I still wouldn't drink certain things like beer. I would only bong beer. I would not drink beer. It's just, I don't know. I was picky about it, I guess, but I would still drink it. I would still find a way to drink it. And over the years, my alcoholism progressed because I was in an alcohol household. We kept alcohol in the house. We partied every night. We partied every weekend. We hung out with older people. So I didn't even get carded when I went to bars. And I could drink out in public. And I did at 19, 20 years old. I didn't even go out to a bar for my 21st birthday. I stayed home and had a party. I mean, because I had already been drinking out. By the time I was 21, life started to change. And my relationship started getting abusive. And my alcoholism started peaking. And I was just in a really bad place mentally. I already, mind you, like I need to take a step back and acknowledge the fact that I have had major depressive disorder and suicidal ideation since I was 5 years old. That has not gone away. That I work with and through and on now, but it's still there and it has always been there. So, as a young adult, I had a lot of untreated mental health issues. I found out last year that I was diagnosed bipolar, and that was very relieving to me because of the symptoms and experiences I've had throughout my life. Having answers was actually very reassuring to me rather than harmful. But neither here nor there, not relevant really. But I guess in a way it is because all of my untreated mental health played a major factor in my alcoholism. I wasn't getting help for anything else. So the only help I had was dear old alcohol numbing my pain away, making me pretend to feel good feelings and melting my insides. And that was all I did to cope. And as life got harder and more confusing and worse, and I felt more stuck where I was, you have to think it was, I don't remember as a young adult mental health and everything that is so out in the open today. I don't remember that being so popular back then. I don't remember having multiple friends in therapy and that being normal. I don't remember that. So I didn't think of any of these options to get help. I didn't see a way out. I didn't see any options for help. I didn't know what to do. I was a dumb, naive child. So I had no idea what to do to help myself. So I just drank. I just drank it all away and it didn't ever go away. So there started to be these incidents in my relationship where every time we would get drunk, I would get hurt. And it only happened when we drank. So we'd quit drinking, nothing would happen. I couldn't stay sober. So I'd ask her if we could start drinking again. And she'd say yes, because she could take it or leave it. And I couldn't. So we'd start drinking again. I would get hurt again. And we would stop drinking again. And the cycle just continued over and over and over again until there was a very, very, very bad incident that was the first time I was scared for my life. And so I made a deal with my mom, who my poor mom knew what was going on when it was happening, went to a therapist herself to see what she could do for me, because the only thing you can do when you have someone you love is sit back and freaking watch it happen, because they will hate you, resent you, go back, not listen, not see it, not understand it. Anyway, so I made a deal with my mom that if something happened again, I would leave. So we quit drinking again. And this was in January of 2015. And then in June of 2015, we started drinking again. And in June, we at the time had been pescatarians for about a year and a half. And when we went to events and places that had food, we didn't have a lot of options very often. So we were at a party that ended up being a surprise wedding. There wasn't a whole lot of non-meat options. So I had like a bag of chips and some coleslaw or something. And we drank a lot, of course. And we got into an argument about who was drunker and who got to drive home. We were borrowing my grandparents' truck. So I chose to drive. She tried to get out of the car and I stopped her and I tried to yank her back in the car. And when I yanked her back in the car, she started hitting me so that I would let her go. She wouldn't stop hitting me, so I let her go. And mind you, I'm driving down the road in a moving vehicle while all of this is happening. So when she opens her car door while we're driving down the road to get out, and I go to grab her, and she proceeds to start punching me in the head, I let her go because she knocked me unconscious. I lost control of the vehicle and we rolled twice, I believe is what I was told. 2.5 times, something like that. And last part of the story I just told you. She had her door open to get out. So when I lost control and blacked out or passed out or whatever you want to call it, whatever it may have been, she got ejected from the vehicle. And I had a flash of a moment where I came to when the vehicle was upside down and it looked like a scene out of a movie. I could tell I was upside down. There was red dirt everywhere. And then I passed back out. And when the truck came to a stop, I looked over and she wasn't there. So I got out of the vehicle to look for her. And I found her laying there. And we had landed in somebody's yard. So I went to their door and I asked them to call 911 and tell them that we were in an accident. And I called her family, who had just left the same wedding we were at and didn't live far from us because we'd moved far away to where her family lived to be close to them. And I called them to tell them that we were in an accident. And they sent ambulances and took us in separate ambulances to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, all I cared about was checking on her. I refused treatment. I know that there were officers that came to talk to me to take my statement, and I told them all the same truth I just told you because my story has never fucking changed, not one time, because I've never lied about any of this. I've always told the truth. And I refused treatment because I found out that they were airlifting her to another hospital for an emergency surgery because she was not okay. So I had to refuse my treatment so that I could leave to go to her. And I'm sure that I was there. I don't, my concept of time is irrelevant. My concept of time after this accident is bullshit because my life was over. My life was over. My partner of 5 years was in the middle of an emergency craniotomy because we just got in a car accident. We had just gotten into a fight and we were in a car accident and she was not waking up. And I was not okay. Anybody that knows me knows how much she means to me. They know that she was the love of my life. She's not the only love of my life, but for that period of time in my life, that version of my life, she was it. Because I died with her. I did. She passed away in the hospital 3 days later. They said that her surgery went flawless, that everything was perfect. And they were just waiting on the swelling in her brain to go down, and it never did. It never did. On this channel, I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, including spiritual experiences. And maybe at a later day, I'll share some spiritual experiences I had in that hospital, because that is where they began for me. But what's important to understand is that I was drunk driving and I was in a very serious car accident. And my partner of 5 years did not survive that car accident, but I did. Do you know how much I hated that? I cursed God. How dare they? How dare they spare me? How dare they? I didn't feel worthy. It took years to feel worthy of having been spared. And that hurts my heart for me today, but it's the truth. After she passed away, there were consequences for my actions, which I genuinely could have cared less. I don't actually know. I don't think it's humanly possible for me to have cared as any less than I did, because I died with her. My life meant nothing anymore. Everything that I knew it to be was over. So therefore my life was meaningless and empty. And so was I. So when I had to deal with the consequences of my actions, I was fine with that. I felt completely 100% responsible and alone guilty for what happened. Though today I know I am not guilty alone. But regardless, I was charged with felony death by motor vehicle. I took a deal of a 6.5 year split sentence, which means that I served 18 months in prison and spent the rest of the time on probation. I lucked out. I did good. I don't know what you want to call it, but I got off probation after I think 2 years, maybe 2.5, maybe 3. But I got off probation early because I wasn't doing anything I wasn't supposed to be. But how I got sober was prison. I went to I went to my first official meeting in my official sobriety in prison. I had a little bender, and that's a story for another day, leading up to my court date for when I turned myself in. And I had a friend that took me to a meeting one time after my accident, and I had made it 45 days. I was so angry after everything happened that I went home and I poured all my alcohol out. Of course, we had a full bar at home. So I went home and I poured everything out. I was so angry, so angry. I got rid of all of it. I made it 45 days. And then somebody tricked me into drinking. My alcoholic brain tricked me into drinking. However, I need to look at that. It doesn't really matter. My alcoholism played a factor in me reaching for that cup and taking it. And I went on a bender for 9 months. But that right before, the day before I relapsed, my friend took me to a meeting and the topic was forgiveness. And I picked up my first chip. It was a super big deal. It was everything I needed it to be. Still relapsed the next night because the drink was there and I was dying inside. I was still dying inside when I started going to AA in prison. But I made a deal. Made a deal with my higher power that either they let me succeed this time and or they help me find the strength to make my life worth living. As I sit before you, I took the latter. It was not easy. Prison was literally like the worst experience of my life. Like, I got a DUI when I was 17, but my parents were the kind that took care of things for me. And so, like, I didn't have any serious consequences for that. None of the dumb stuff that I did as a dumb teenager did I have serious consequences for. Nothing that stuck. So I never spent a night in jail. I was not in handcuffs or ever put in the back of cop cars. So to go from nothing to prison, I spent 8 days in jail before they transferred me. So 8 days in jail and then 18 months in prison. That's plenty of stories for other times. But the point is that is what led me to sobriety. Somebody asked if I wanted to go to a meeting with them in prison, and I said yes. And I was so desperate for something that I dove into it, and I haven't looked back since. I think that's a good little starting point. There is so much more to come. I appreciate anyone that made it the full length of this video to watch and learn a little bit about who I am. Thank you for sharing space with me. Thank you for being here with me. And I look forward to what's to come.